Today we're going to read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling. Okay. Week 4 March, Uncle Vernon suggested. Don't be silly, Bernard. She hates the boy. The Dursleys often spoke about Harry like this, as though he wasn't there, or rather, as though he was something very nasty that couldn't understand them, like a slug. What about what's her name, your friend? You are? A holiday machuga, snapped Aunt Petunia. You could just leave me here, Harry put in hopefully. He'd be able to watch what he wanted on television for a change, and maybe even have a go on Dudley's computer. Aunt Petunia looked as though she just swallowed a lemon. And come back and found the house in ruins, she snarled. Our blew up the house, said Harry, but they weren't listening. I suppose we could take him to the zoo, said Aunt Petunia slowly, and leave him in the car. The car's new. He's not sitting in it alone. Dudley began to cry loudly. In fact, he wasn't really crying. It had been years since he really cried, but he knew that if he screwed up his face the way his mother would give him anything he wanted. Dinky Duddy Dubs, don't cry. Mommy won't let him spoil a special day, she cried, flinging her arms around him. I don't want him to come. Yeah, Dudley yelled between huge potent sobs. He always spoils everything. He spied Harry a nasty grin through the gap of his mother's arms. Just then the doorbell rang. Oh God! Oh good Lord! They're here! Said Aunt Petunia frantically. As a moment later, Dudley's best friend, Pierce Perkins, walked in with his mother. Pierce was a scrawny boy with a face like a rat. He was usually the one who held people's arms behind their backs while Dudley hit them. Dudley stopped pretending to cry at once. Half an hour later, Harry, who couldn't believe his luck, was sitting in the back of the Dudley's car with Pierce and Dudley on the way to the zoo for the first time in his life. His aunt and uncle hadn't been able to think of anything else to do with him. But before they left, Uncle Vernon had taken Harry aside. I'm warning ya, he had said, putting his large purple face right up close to Harry's. I'm warning you now, boy. Any funny business, anything at all, and you'll be in the cupboard from now until Christmas. I'm not going to do anything, said Harry. Honestly, but Uncle Vernon didn't believe him. No one ever did. The problem was, strange things often happened around Harry, and it was just no good telling the Dursleys he didn't make them happen. Once, Aunt Petunia, tired of Harry coming back from the barber's looking as though he hadn't been at all, had taken a pair of kitchen scissors and cut his hair so short he was almost bald except for his face, which she left to hide a horrible scar. Dudley had laughed silly at Harry, who spent a sleepless night imagining school the next day, where he was already laughed at for his baggy clothes and taped glasses. Next morning, however, he had got up to find his hair exactly as it had been before Aunt Petunia had sheared it off. He had been given a week in his cupboard for this, even though he had tried to explain that he couldn't explain how it had grown back so quickly. Another time, Aunt Petunia had been trying to force him into a revolting old jumper of Dudley's, brown with orange bubbles. And then the harder she tried to pull it over his head, the smaller it seemed to become, until finally it might have been a glove puppet, but certainly wouldn't fit Harry. Aunt Petunia had decided it must have shrunk in the wash, and, to his great relief, Harry wasn't punished. On the other hand, he got into terrible trouble for being found on the roof of the school kitchens. Dudley's gang had been chasing him as usual when, as much as Harry surprised as anyone else's, there he was sitting on the chimney. The Dursleys have received a very angry letter from Harry's headmistress, telling them Harry had been climbing school walls. But all he tried to do, as he shouted at Uncle Vernon through the locked door of his cupboard, was jump behind the big bins outside the kitchen doors. Harry stopped that the wind must cut him in mid-jump. But today, nothing was going to go wrong. It was even worth being with Dudley and Pierce to be spending the day somewhere that wasn't school, his cupboard, or Mrs. Fig's cabbage-smelling living room. Where he drove, Uncle Bernard complained to Aunt Petunia. He liked to complain about things. People at work, Harry, council, Harry, the bank, and Harry were just a few of his favorite subjects. This morning, it was motorbikes. Riding along like maniacs, the young hoodlums, he said as a motorbike overtook them. I have a dream about a motorbike, he said, Harry remembering suddenly. It was fine. Uncle Bernard nearly crashed into the car in front. He turned right around in his seat and yelled at Harry, his face like a gigantic beetle with a mustache. Motorbikes don't fly! Dudley and Pierce sniggered. I know they don't, said Harry. It was only a dream, but he wished he hadn't said anything. If there was one thing that the Dursleys hated even more than his asking questions, it was his talking about anything active in a way it shouldn't, no matter it was in a dream or even a cartoon. They seemed to think he might get dangerous ideas. It was a very sunny Saturday, and the zoo was crowded with families. The Dursleys bought Dudley and Pierce large chocolate ice creams at the entrance, and then, because the smiling lady in the van had asked Harry what he wanted before they could hurry him away, they bought him a cheap lemon ice lolly. It wasn't bad either, Harry thought, licking it as they watched Gorilla scratching his head and looked remarkably like Dudley, except that it wasn't bored. Harry had the best morning he'd had in a long time. He was careful to walk a little way apart from Dursley, so that Dudley and Pierce, who were starting to get bored with the animals by lunchtime, had a full fall back on their favorite hobby of hitting him. Okay, so this is the end of today's reading. Next time we'll read maybe the end of the chapter. Maybe. Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye.